What's good, everyone? I'm VenomousStare, and today I have something exceptionally exciting for you. It is a Venomous Classic, which is a series that I do where I take a look back at classic StarCraft 2 games. This time we have an MLG Finals, the first MLG Dallas Finals for Heart of the Swarm in 2013, and it is between two incredible players. One of them, Startail Life, an absolute monster. One of the most famous players ever and one of the most controversial players ever, and I'll get into that. And in the top right of Neoplanet S, which is, by the way, a pretty small, compact, and Terran-favored map, we have Flash, who is the best StarCraft 1 player ever, probably the best RTS player ever, and he is a paragon of macro play and mechanics and intelligent decision-making. He is still winning StarCraft Brood War tournaments to this day. He is the defending ASL champion 2 times running. And the guy's a damn legend. If you want to look at the best players of all time, the people who really carved their name out in history, Flash is probably the guy at the very top of the list. He is the absolute best player to have ever touched StarCraft. Now, he didn't do that great in StarCraft 2 compared to StarCraft 1, but the fact of the matter is that he did make several finals and he did win a major tournament in StarCraft 2, and this is one of the finals that he made. Now, it is worth noting that whenever StarCraft 2 began, the best players of Brood War, StarCraft 1, didn't immediately switch over. They stuck to Brood War. When the first GSLs occurred for StarCraft 2, you know, it was players like Hope Torture and Fruit Dealer and Idra and Jinro. These names that, you know, they're not Flash and Jaedong and Bisu and Stork, because those guys stuck with StarCraft 1 until 2 years later, which was the beginning of Heart of the Swarm, the first expansion in 2012, which is what this is right here, Life and Flash. And in the beginning of Heart of the Swarm, the game was considered Terran favored. Now, there were several elements to this. For instance, the Widow Mine was absurdly powerful, and it was very standard that Terran players went for an aggressive bio-mine composition. Now, the first map pools in Heart of the Swarm were pretty damn small, so this meant that Terran players could consistently put pressure on the Zerg, and to be honest, there was a lot of action, and it was kind of how the game felt at the beginning of Wings of Liberty. Not in the sort of really bad imbalanced TVZ sense, but it felt like Zerg was always having to be on the back foot, but if they could safely tech to mutas and gain a foothold, then possibly the Zerg would be the one who could start to transition and maybe put some pressure onto the Terran. But it's so fun to watch this mine bio style because the Terran's always pushing, there's always high impact engagements. If the Zerg screws up, the Widow Mines could do tremendous game-ending damage, and if the Terran's not careful, he could take damage to Banelings. Now remember, in Heart of the Swarm, there's no Ravagers, so that kind of changes what Zerg can do. There's a lot more reliance on Ling Bane. You don't really see Infestor Ravager play, you don't really see Burrowed Infestors, because Infestors couldn't use abilities while burrowed. So Flash is going for a CC into expand. Notice he's making a Marine and not a Reaper. This was much more common back in the day, and in my opinion this is not only more fun to watch, but more fun to play with and against. So Flash is making a bunker. He's worried that Life is going to maybe throw it in a Bane nest and cheese him. Notice that Flash scans the main there and sees no Baneling nest and no gas being mined. One thing that I want to note, because we're going to have to talk about Life at some point, I know many people who click this video knee-jerk reaction might have a dislike of Life, and I would say that especially my audience of newer players might not even know who Life is. And if you try to talk about Life on forums, you might be greeted with some sort of like vitriol, or this sort of weird attitude that people pretend not to know about him or that he didn't exist or something. It's truly bizarre. So the reason there's this weird stigma around our Zerg player in the bottom left, whose expansion had just finished, Life, is because he was a paragon of Zerg, and it looked like he might become one of the best players of all time. He won the last GSL of Wings of Liberty, defeating MVP, widely considered to be probably the best player to ever touch StarCraft 2, definitely the best Wings of Liberty player. and life was looking incredible. And at the end of Wings of Liberty, Zerg was very strong, but at the beginning of Heart of the Swarm, Zerg, especially against Terran, was having some troubles, specifically against BO7. And there is no time that this is more true than at this MLG Dallas. Now, going into this match, Life had to defeat Polt and a Terran player named Last, and Last actually got up 2-0 in a best-of-5 up on him, and Life obviously came back to 1. You know, obviously he's in the finals now. But in Game 3, Last, the Terran player, actually failed to beat Life whenever Last went for a 2-factory Blue Flame Hellion opener. Whenever Last was going pure, or whenever Life was going pure Ling. And I remember standing behind Life in real life, because this was an MLG Dallas, I'm from Texas, I was attending, and seeing those Hellions with Blue Flame roll up, and he didn't have Roach Tech, of course, back in this time. It was a lot more popular to try to forego Roaches, because if you made a bunch of Roaches and they became useless, you had useless Roaches. You couldn't just make them into Ravagers, which are suddenly really useful again. So I remember seeing all these Blue Flame Hellions versus Life and thinking, oh man, he's dead. But he managed to hold and bring the series back. But the reason there is so much vitriol towards Life, even though he's an incredible player who's won several major lands and kind of played the game in this different, very unique, exciting way, is because he took money, or agreed to sort of throw matches with these gamblers. These gamblers said, okay, Life, you're playing these Pro League matches versus Terminator. Now, you're probably going to win, as far as everyone knows, and the odds against you are very good, so that, you know, if you were to bet on Terminator, you would have had like 2.5 odds or some bullshit. So, because obviously Life was god tier, like an MVP, Bonjwa type level player with multiple titles under his belt, and Terminator was kind of a lower level guy for a Pro League team that wasn't very good. So Life did it. He took a dive and I guess got a cut of the money, but he got figured out because the gamblers had bet so much money on the match. And after that, Life was pretty much banned from the entire community, because really not much worse you can do than intentionally lose. Because then you have to wonder, whenever someone if Life were to lose in the future in a big tournament, you would wonder, like, well, did he really throw? Or I mean, did he really lose, or did he throw? So this is before that event. This is kind of before any of that even happened, much less got figured out about. And this is a position in the game where everyone was kind of looking to Life to figure out this matchup, TVZ. And Flash is ranging out with Hellions here. So you can imagine me in real life at this MLG, back in the peak of StarCraft, who was very excited to see this matchup. One of the best RTS players of all time versus a guy who was absolutely red hot and just looked like he had all the answers for Zerg. And back at this point, I played a lot more Zerg. I off-raced a little, but it's not like now where I played Protoss, Terran, and Zerg all pretty much equally. Back then, pretty much Zerg. Life is going to clean up the Widow Mines. Now, this is a very Terran-favored map, not only because it's kind of claustrophobic and the rush distance is pretty short, but there are these weird hills, and because mines were so standard, you would see Terran players not only do parade pushes, but those hills kind of gave them safe area to fall back on. So if ever the Zerg kind of got a foothold and pushed Terran away from their third, the Terran could just kind of stand on the top of those little hill ridges where we saw Life's Lings and put their mines. So Life doesn't even need Ling speed because he had such good positioning. He knew that Flash was trying to push up and aggress over there, but he flanked him and came in from behind, and those are the kind of moves that Life did all the time, which was just come in whenever you least expected him from a weird angle and hit you right in the mouth with a ton of Lings. And notice that Flash's economy just gets devastated. He has to lift up his third, he loses his SCVs, his push is gutted, and that's Life's bread and butter move right there. He knows when you're going to attack, he knows where you're going to attack, so he positions his Lings in such a way where, yes, he lets you attack, but then he devastates you. Some Zergs seem like they're always defending, always waiting for the Terran player to make the move. It's almost as though Life wants the Terran player to make the moves that the Terran player already wants to make. He willingly lets them do so, and then does a move that guts them in the process. Very oftentimes, this is a counterattack into the natural or main base, but this time it took root in form of a counterattack at the third, as well as a beautiful army surround. And notice that Flash is repeatedly trying to just kind of scatter Widow Mines across the map. He's not just like keeping 6 with his army and running out at Flash, or excuse me, at Life. So this is something that kind of fell out of style and we didn't really see as much, which is using the mines like you would think about mines, which is scattering them in high traffic locations. Look at this area of Flash's base around the front of his natural. He has mines laid out everywhere, and again, Life is going to come from behind at this weird angle, and it is so hard to split and get your army positioned properly when the Zerg is always attacking you from behind. And notice huge Widow Mine hit there, as the Widow Mine splash was tremendous back in this phase of the game. So Flash, of course, trying to mine at the third, but Life is still harassing. And notice the last 2 big pushes that Flash has done, Life has attacked him from behind. So oftentimes as Terran, you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to push up into this base, I'm going to scan and split my army out because he's going to be attacking me coming from his third and natural. And then before you can even scan, holy shit, massive Ling Bane behind me. And a big engagement coming here is, again, notice that Life is springing forward every single time before Flash can get set up. This is even more important whenever Widow Mines do excruciatingly powerful splash damage. You think mines are bad now, Zerg players? They were horrible back then. And Life is forced to run back here, respecting the mines. Notice that Life is spreading creep, forking around down the right side of Neoplanet S, because Flash is so consistently clearing up this creep over into the left and middle area of the map. Now another thing that's annoying about the hills, as Widow Mines get killed there, is they were very narrowly about to go off, but Life detonated Banelings. Beautiful play by Life. And Life is continuing to focus the army here, and the medevacs could fall pretty quickly here if the Marines do. Life kites back, kills one of the medis, but without any links, he's forced to retreat. And an infestation pit is on the way for Life, so that means our Zerg friend is going to transition into Hive. And notice, at no point in this game has Life looked like he's been caught off guard. He opted for an early pool opener to kind of set the tempo, but he didn't really catch Flash off guard with the early pool because, well, Flash is a safe player. He made his expansion in base. But regardless, Flash has always had enough Ling Bane to deal, and anytime Life has always had enough Ling Bane to deal, and anytime Flash is pushed up into his base, before Life can even be pressured in a reasonable way, he's up in Flash's face and destroying his army. And to touch on what I wanted to touch on earlier, Flash is kind of leaving these mines in a retreat path almost, or in a path that counters a counterattack. Now this not only is a great move, but is great against Life specifically, because Life is the kind of player who loves to do counterattacks, as Life's base gets scanned in the bottom right there. And no turret here for our friend Flash here, so this could be bad, because currently Life is ripping apart the SCVs, but Flash stems over and chases off the mutas. Now notice that the whole game has been going on and Flash has been trying to pressure Life, and Life has been making an adequate number of Ling Bane all game. He's been threatening counterattacks, but he's also been making a ton of mutas. As you see, a Widow Mine goes off there and kills a ton of the morphing Banes. And great macro there by Flash to have units at his front door of his natural, and that base gets dropped in the bottom right there. So Flash showing his excellent multitask there. But Life, of course, is pressuring this top base, which did recently get a turret up. Bottom base falls for Life. Flash is mass repairing, but it looks like that turret might go down, because once you get this many mutas, it's very, very hard to hold them off with just a handful of turrets. When I say handful, what I really meant to say was 1 or 2. Flash going to stem in here, set up mines right at that choke, but the third base mining is going to be cancelled here. So Flash is down to very low income. Notice that he's pretty much bottomed out with minerals, but he does kill that base for Flash. Now Flash has the base in the top, Life has the base in the top left, excuse me. They're both so good at, and I get them mixed up. Life stacks his minerals, and oh my goodness, as the drones get stacked on in minerals, Banes come forward, but it looks as though Flash might lose the foothold in his main as 3-3 is about to finish. But no, the mutas will fly away and try to turn on to these medevacs, and they could get one tapped here, but no, Life actually focused onto the ground units for a bit there instead of focus firing them. But everything dies pretty much here. Life still has a supply advantage, and Life is about to have 4 bases where our friend Flash only has the 2. Now Flash can lift and try to mine at a 3rd, but that 3rd that is by the main that we've already seen been mined from twice now, pretty predictable, almost mined out. And that base way down low, of course there's an Overlord by, and no one really ever took the gold base while this map was being played, so Flash is in a weird position. He's trying to get a good drop done, but notice that Life had perfect static defense set up at his 3rd and natural, and he can run back here with Mutas, and Flash is kind of stalling out here. His wheels are spinning a bit. They did a big trade where they trade what Flash really kind of thought would be 3rd for 3rd, but what kind of turned out to be like 1 out of 5 mining bases for Life. And at this point Flash kind of thinks like, okay, we're both on really low 1 base economy, and boom, a huge Widow Mine shot goes off. As you can see, it did a lot of damage there. Now that 1 Widow Mine shot took out a Muta, damaged another severely, and damaged a lot more. So you didn't really see the huge mine damage there, but it is there. And once again, Flash is trying to do drops to come back in this game, which is exactly what you should aim to do as Terran, but Life has perfect static defense positioning. Marine Marauder coming out here. Now if you were to put a gun to my head and say what's the perfect composition to drop with in the late game, 6 Marines and a Marauder does a great job, because the 1 Marauder actually packs a huge punch to buildings, but the Marines mean that it's going to be hard for anything air to deal with you. And we see there, oh my goodness, is a big chunk of bio dies there right after the spawning pool. And that 1 Marauder, and that's why I like the 1 Marauder, because if you do 8 Marines, yeah, it's really cute, but the 1 Marauder throws enough HP in to foul up any sort of pure unit defense, and Yoinks being executed there, because this was before a parasitic bomb existed, and Yoinks is all that is needed, because Life is now way ahead in supply, almost 90. Flash does have that 1 base being mule hammered, but with the top left base being taken for Life, as well as the base that died in the earlier attack, is a lot of Lings die there to that mine. I really do think that Life is going to take this, and this is a best of 7, I believe. It's been a long time since I've seen these games, but it's a final, so it has to be a best of 7. I will have the rest of these games casted. I think Life was an excellent, exciting player, and just because he had that scandal, I don't think that it's right that his place in history was kind of ignored. Notice that whenever workers are oversaturated in this game, it does not show up red like it does in Heart of the Swarm, which is actually a huge help for new players for the workers to show up in red. In Legacy, not in Heart of the Swarm. In Heart of the Swarm, if you're oversaturated, the worker count does not show up red, unlike Legacy, which obviously the Legacy is superior in that way. Widow Mine's trying to get money shots off, but it's not going to happen. More Yoinks being used there. And Ultras just chasing along here. The bio, of course, does not have a chance to live, and Liberators didn't exist, so once you teched up to Ultras, Terran is really just Marauders. They couldn't go into Liberators with their reactored starports to deal with it. Notice that Life has retained not only his Muta count, but his Spellcaster count, and Life was always very good about being clean and crisp like this. A lot of Zergs like Losira or Lenok might be prone to losing their mudded units throughout the game. Life not so much. Now Flash is fighting tooth and nail here. He's down about 90 supply, but he's fighting. He's a fighter. It's the finals of a tournament. And you want to subscribe to my channel to make sure you don't miss any StarCraft, because I do old stuff like this, the Venomous Classic, but I also do current Legacy of the Void stuff that you'll also like. And in typical Heart of the Swarm fashion, Life is way behind in the 2-2 versus 3-3 timing. And Life is having a little bit of trouble closing this game. Now this was pretty common at this point of the metagame. Terran often, because they would be going so mine heavy, it would kind of be tricky to close them out with Ling Bane. But no mines up here, and Life will be able to take it. He has Spellcasters, he has Mutas, he has the beautiful late game Zerg composition. And Ultra's going into a building wall there, but some Banes mercifully coming up to help life. And it looks as though the third base is going to be pushed out again here. And the base south of the natural gets a lot of SCVs killed. But you can see what I mean here. If you kind of run in with Ultras, a good player was able to kite you around at this time. More Ultras coming forward though, and life just has so many bases where the game is essentially over. The Ultra gets popped there by Marines. Ling's flooding into this bottom base. And I'm not going to sit here and scream and pretend that Flash could somehow come back and win, because he GG's there. So if you enjoyed that, make sure you subscribe for more, because you want to see more StarCraft, don't you?